This is video number 3 and the final one in this series. It's all about getting minerals and micro minerals into the cells. So, as you can see here, as I mentioned on the very first video, our doctor, they check serum levels of magnesium. Now, that doesn't tell us what's inside the cell. As an example there, for your cells to do work, magnesium needs to be in there. And this is just for one process of over 300 processes, including repairing DNA. This one is just about activating cellular ATP, energy. So inside the cell, and as you can see here, for the dude that we're helping, protein synthesis will be low. And it's not just muscle protein. Our endoplasmic reticulum, the rough, scientists estimate that we're making up to 8,000 proteins. And these proteins increase testosterone, energy, detox, neurotransmission, and I'll show you a little bit about that. And I'm going to give you the plan here today to really get these minerals and micro minerals into the cell where they can do work for you. Activate longevity genes, get your hormones a popping, your energy roaring. So adenosine triphosphate here. So when it does work, magnesium binds to one of those phosphates and it cleaves it, and then the cell does important work in your body. So when it's low, the mitochondria, they're tired, so you're up and down with your energy. You don't have good calcium flux, so cramping and irritability. And then over here, because you can't activate ATP, you pack it on the fat and you've got hyperinsulinemia. And then your brain is overactivated, so you got no spark, mood issues, ADHD-like symptoms. Look, I'm not going to go over that. We've talked about that in the previous one. So today we're going to wake up the mitochondria, and I'm going to give you just one really easy strategy. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but it takes effort. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't like effort, this isn't for you. You can probably, take off. So we're going to talk about the mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum. As I mentioned on previous calls there, mitochondria, they're making out ATP, but it's all for naught if magnesium ain't in the cell for the ATP to do work for you. Now, scientists estimate we've got these sodium potassium pumps, ATP ACEs, and sodium, potassium, these pumps use up to 50% of the brain's ATP. So think about that. If you're low on magnesium, you're going to have ADHD-like symptoms, clearly. You won't have a lot of focus or motivation, neurotransmission. And of course, the endoplasmic reticulum, you know, we've just got to make sure that these minerals are in there. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. And the solution I'll provide you is very simple. So the protein synthesis of magnesium, like you need ATP to activate collagen synthesis and also the endoplasmic reticulum. Now look at how important collagen is. I mean, the heart valve, the cornea, the muscles, your skin. You don't want wrinkles and sagging skin and blemishes and shit. Ligaments and tendons, bone, collagen in the matrix everywhere in the adipose tissue. And the blood vessels, think about that. Atherosclerosis, hypertension, thick, sludgy blood, thrombosis. We don't want that. And all of your joints, you probably don't want to be arthritic. You want to be turning over your collagen. So we need to make sure that's happening. So as I spoke about, the mitochondria and the ER, ER stress, you got misfolded proteins in the rough ER, so they don't even work properly and they cause a lot of deleterious health outcomes. Just for the heart here, you've got DNA injury, lipid injury, so that's the plasma membrane and fats inside the cells, sterols and things like that. And the actual muscle itself, protein, cardiac injury. So the mitochondria and the endoplasmic reticulum, both rough and smooth. And the endoplasmic reticulum is making the glycoproteins and glycosaminoglycans for the glycocalyx. So this shit here doesn't build up, as I talked about on the previous video there. And on the previous video, the one before this one, the second one in this series, we talked about how critical the plasma membrane is. It gives you the charge, and it's got these ion channels in there to get stuff into the cell. So if we've got lipid peroxidization, then we've got very weak cell. So we've got altered fluidity. So you just feel like shit. And I gave you two pretty cool strategies. What you can do is check your omega index and get it to about between 10 and 12. So I provided solution on the other one there. So this is one of the omega 3s, eicosapentaenoic. You've also got DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. So we're just focusing on EPA here. So it's incorporated over time. So it's a bit of a long-term strategy. And you see this here, it blocks lipid peroxidization and it's blocking that. You know, when that's going on, you've got mitochondrial stress, you've got endoplasmic reticulum stress. So, very powerful strategy. And they've shown that it's more powerful, EPA, than vitamin E. And they did this in a dose dependent lipid peroxidization and cholesterol domain formation in LDL particles. So, how about that? The other strategy I gave you was astaxanthin. And I talked about that in the previous video. So, number one, it is triggering these longevity genes. So, it's a long term strategy. And if you want to live a very long, powerful life and reverse aging and you know, your brain's working, you've got your hormones are popping, we really need to start considering these other strategies. Now, astaxanthin also, it spans the entire plasma membrane. It's the only thing known in biology to do that. And it's also sequestering superoxide and what's called reactive oxygen species. So the old endoplasmic reticulum, if we don't have this in the cell, and I'm going to give you a solution for that, we're shit out of luck. So here's these ATP pumps. Now, as you see on the inside of the cell, so this is the inside, and that's that's the extracellular matrix there. So basically, when ATP binds this protein, it needs magnesium to bind to it. Then the protein shape changes, sodium comes in, and potassium goes out. So right here, we're not going to have, it's just not going to happen too efficiently. So you're just tired and you think you're getting older. No, look, I'm 54 and I've never felt better. So let's just talk about how that's going to help you. So the endoplasmic reticulum. So when we got the cells replete with these electrolytes and micro minerals, the cells can actually do shit for us, like make testosterone. Now, every 2 hours, the gonadotropin hormone releasing system is triggered. So FSH, fertility, and LH, testosterone production in men, estrogen in women there. Every 2 hours. So, you know, the endoplasmic reticulum is making these transporter proteins. You see these things? They're enzymes and proteins. There's proteins everywhere. So, if your endoplasmic reticulum is stressed, you're not making these proteins and they can be misfolded. So, they don't even work properly. Then the lysosomes got to come along and degrade them. And you don't want that to be happening. So, it's like you've got incompetent workers in your body trying to build shit. It's not going to happen efficiently. So LH comes down here and ATP and magnesium bind to it to activate that. And this is the blood flow and glycocalyx pathway here. And they converge onto these protein kinase proteins. Now, your body actually makes this isoform of vitamin K2 called MK4. So if you're healthy, you'll be making optimal levels of that. So you don't even really need to supplement MK4. And that then triggers this star protein, which is the rate limiting step of sex hormone synthesis. Then cholesterol is imported into the mitochondria. So this is why it's a necessary step, but it's also making your neurotransmitters. You know, it's making so many different things. Then it's converted through enzymes and proteins into pregnenolone. Then it's exported out through the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, enzymatically converted all the way down here to free testosterone every 2 hours. All right. Now, most of the men that we help, they get their free testosterone at about 3%. We've got some guys close to 4%. And pretty good is 2%. So we're not happy with 2%. We're happy with 3 and closer to 4. So every 2 hours it's coming out free. Now, just to show you how critical these microminerals are being inside the cell. Right here, this is the mitochondria. So they're producing your ATP. We know that. And when we do that, when we breathe, The oxygen is turned into superoxide. Now, the mitochondria have an elegant system, superoxide dismutase 2 and 1. Now, for this to activate, manganese binds to it and makes it work. So if you're low on manganese, you're going to have more superoxide, more reactive oxygen species, and your mitochondria being crushed. Now, superoxide dismutase 1, you need zinc and copper. You see this here? This person, until they fix that issue, and that's what we're going to try and help you do today, they're producing a lot of reactive oxygen species. So, just terrible. So the mitochondria, about energy, but this is exactly what the mitochondria are doing. So energy, we know that. It's about energy, the mitochondria. This is some of the functions, necessary step to making neurotransmitters. So you probably want good moods, stable moods. Your hormones, as I mentioned, repairing RNA, DNA, lipids, fats. So you want to get your 8-pack, your abs. Well, that fat goes into the mitochondria through a process called beta oxidization. You need carnitine to import it in. So methylation needs to be working. And then you get nice and lean. And it's also burning the fat that you eat, the long chain fats that you eat. And protein synthesis. Everybody focuses on muscle protein synthesis. But again, the endoplasmic reticulum, up to 8,000 proteins working hard for you. Also, things like homeostatic balance of calcium, lactate, lipids, all of those, ROS. It's really doing a lot of work there. And it's communicating with cells, systems, and organs, central nervous system. So, sports performance, strength, reaction time, cognition, your moneymaker, your intestines. So, you're absorbing and breaking down your food so you can actually absorb it fully and completely. And also the microbiome, circadian system, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Metabolic systems, wow, the mitochondria there. They're working hard for you, so we need to look after the mitochondria, your immune system. Now, over here, gene expression, epigenetic pathways, and cell fate. So let's just quickly talk about cell fate very quickly. No, I'll do that in a moment. I'll come back to that. What I want to focus on now is some of the things that are destroying your mitochondria. Now, there are 12 big things that are destroying your mitochondria. Here's just a few. So if you eat too much food and the wrong food, and you're also sedentary, no good. Even being emotionally stressed out and lonely, no good for the mitochondria. You see this here? Chemical agents. It's the personal care products, the water, and also pharmaceuticals. And I want to unpack that can of worms right now. All right. So, unfortunately, these phthalates and parabens, mitochondrial dysfunction, as you can see what's going on there, infertility, testicular dysgenesis, and that doesn't sound too fucking helpful to me. Obesity, asthma, allergies, breast cancer. So it's not great. And they're in medical devices, grass, detergents, surfactants, personal care products, pharmaceuticals, food. All right, so that's our first clue. I'm not going to say anything more about it apart from what I just said. And back over here, that's number one. And number two, so this is the end result. So when you got chronic mitochondrial dysfunction, that heteroplasmy, and Professor Doug Wallace, the grandfather of mitochondrial research, has shown now that every 10 years, most people go through 10% heteroplasmy. So we mistake that with aging. We're getting old, we got aches and pains, our memory's not working too good. If we look after the mitochondria, the endoplasmic reticulum, we replete the cells with minerals, vitamins, microminerals. I think we can live a lot longer than what the mainstream clowns kind of say. So you've got an pro-inflammatory immune phenotype, so immune diseases, autoimmune diseases you got there, neurological diseases, so neurodegeneration, cancer, fibrosis, obesity, diabetes, pain. Yeah. Fatigue, of course, and accelerated aging. So you look old, you feel old, and you feel like shit. Now, over here, we've got to get rid of the mitochondrial toxins, and there's a lot. So there's 12 big ones there. Now, the next thing that I want to focus on is nutrient deficiency. So it's always going back to these nutrients like They're showing us what we need to do. And I'm just going to show you one genetically, and this is me genetically. This is what's called the folate pathway inside your body. Now, it looks kind of complex, but what I'm just going to show you here, you see that purple there? Right, this is my genetics. That means it's very slow. So I need a lot of energy and I need a lot of NADPH. And let me just show you what that is. Energy and NADPH. So NADPH is the rebuilder, detoxing, so rebuilding you. So you want the V8 engine inside you so you can put your foot down the gas pedal and crush it. You also need NAD plus in the up position. So this is helping you burn energy, and also it triggers your longevity genes. Now, as you can see there, I don't have good genes for that at all. Now, the next thing I want to focus in on is you got these purines here. So adenosine triphosphate and guanosine triphosphate, which comes back to the nitric oxide blood flow. And again, I've got slow nitric oxide production. So what that means is my body, if I don't optimize, I'm going to get sick fast. So reactive oxygen species, superoxide, and reactive nitrogen species. So what that simply means is you can also have enos uncoupling, which is very damaging to your heart. So these purines, mine are very slow by optimum recycling there. Nitric oxide is down, perinitrate. And the end result is I'm going to experience this as I age. Like, this is how important minerals are, but also NADPH. And I'm going to talk about how to fix that today. I know it sounds complicated. I just want to show you the work in front of you. Now, when it comes to, brain disease, plaque in your arteries and heart disease, mitochondria. And if you want healthy mitochondria, your circadian rhythm needs to be set in stone. I've done a video all about that, and I'll talk more about it today. But you can't even detox autophagy when it's not set in stone. Your mitochondria are tapping out. You've got cellular senescence and your life expectancy goes down. That's simply because your chromosomes have a protective end cap called telomeres. And if you're going through accelerated telomere attrition, you're losing your base pairs. So when you're born, you got about 15,000. And if you're going through this, and remember Professor Doug Wallace, over every 10 years, 10%. People just burning through their telomeres here. So you get to 70, you've only got 4,000 left. So you feel like shit. You got your aches and pains. You don't have a lot of strength. Your brain, your memories. Oh, look, I'm just having a senior moment. It's not that. Now, the cool thing is you can actually lengthen your base pairs by triggering telomerase, and you've got to stop this dysfunction from happening. So there's no reason why you can't get to 70, have a lot more telomeres, base pairs. But as you can see here, telomere attrition shortening. The old plaque in the arteries, coronary artery disease, stroke, peripheral artery disease, so swelling and edema, cardiomyopathy, heart disease, pericarditis, myocarditis. So the mitochondria, they're doing a lot of heavy lifting. Now, I just want to focus on one last thing, the electron transport chain and the Cristae morphology. Boom, right here. Electron transport chain and the Cristae morphology. So inside, this is the mitochondria here, and you need the precursor right there. So you need this precursor. So you need to be eating something to make phosphatidylethanolamine. And phosphatidylethanolamine, if it's low, you've got low Cristae. So what does that mean? What does that actually mean? Well, you've got less places to make ATP. So your mitochondria are working so hard, they're gassed, they're just coughing and a spluttering. So when you get enough of the precursor, phosphatidylethanolamine, you got more Cristae, so you got much more capacity to make a lot more ATP. So that one thing alone can make you feel old, worthless, and like you're tapping out. Your memory's not there. So we want a very high Cristae. Now, the final thing that I'll just talk about here is the mTOR pathway, because this is going to make a lot of sense when I give you the solution. So you've got mTOR complex 1, which is nutrition, mTOR complex 2. And this is the secret to getting the minerals and micro minerals into the cells. Now, I just want to focus in on mTOR complex 1 here. So if you fuck this up, you got low sterol. So we're talking testosterone and all those things there. And then you've got low lysosomes. What are lysosomes? They're the garbage men of your cells. So we want to be triggering this whole complex and we want to do it safely. So this is the plan right there. And I'm going to come back here towards the end and talk about the interventions to healthy mitochondria. So let me just open up this here, bring it over here. All right. So this is what we call the mineral rebuild routine, movement plus ion charge. So this is the recipe, all right? So the paradox is we need to have great electrolyte status, which is an electrical charge around your cell and on the membrane potential. And guess what facilitates that? Well, you got your sodium, you got your potassium, you got your magnesium, and also vitamin C really augments that. So you don't want to be taking calcium. Like I'll talk about what I do in a moment, but calcium is you really need that more at nighttime because calcium helps your muscles relax and helps turn the parasympathetic rest and digest. Now you probably can't see this too well, but you want to choose whole food vitamin C, and I just use lemon juice for that. Simple as that. You see, inside the whole food vitamin C, you got these cofactors, mineral cofactors for calcium, magnesium, copper. Are you picking up on what I'm laying down? And cheap old ascorbic acid pales in comparison. So this is where the mTOR complex comes in. So this is how we do it. The mTOR complex, what that's doing is opening up all these channels to get all the electrolytes into the cell and replete them, including zinc and manganese, things like that. So it's not just the electrolytes. So it's triggering this whole complex. And I won't go over the pathways there, suffice to say. That's how we do it. Now, the key idea here is that HIIT cardio. Now, you got to make sure that you're healthy before you engage in this, right? So don't be stupid. Make sure that you got a healthy heart and you can do this HIIT cardio. And also, weightlifting does it too. So the whole protocol is you mix up those electrolytes there, quite simply, and you want to sip on them for about 15 to 20 minutes before you do your HIIT cardio or your resistance training. So step one, we've got to get the circadian rhythm sets. That's light, right? And hydration. So sip on it. That whole thing up there makes 1 liter. And I sip on about 250 mils over 15 to 20 minutes. Just take small sips. And then step two, to trigger these mTOR2 complex. And this is going to just supercharge the electrolytes into the cell. It's opening up all these channels and giving it a good net negative charge. So 2 to 3 rounds, you don't need a lot. That's the cool thing. You can do some body weight squats, some push-ups, and you can do 30 to 40 minute sprints just in place. So you're just doing sprints in place or jumping jacks, rest 30 minutes, do it 2 or 3 times. That's it. Or you can do what I prefer to do. I just do a bit of stretching, then I just do sprints 30 to 40 seconds pretty fast, do 2 to 3 rounds, and in between those rounds, I do 90-second rest. And then you finish that, you got to turn off the stress response. So you do what's called double inhales for 3 to 5 minutes. So that's just as simple as it gets. All right. So I'll just go back over here. Now, as you can see over there, cold exposure. So you got to be careful with that. Sauna. So this is mitochondrial interventions, evolutionary based foods. I'm, I'm not going to drive nutrition. Fasting. Also increases mitochondrial biogenesis, circadian rhythm. Fermented foods do too, but you could have a sensitivity to histamines and you could have a very slow monoamine oxidase, so you can't metabolize tyramine too well, so that could backfire on you. And what this is breath holds. So things like Wim Hof, and I've got my own special form of that. So it puts a stress on the mitochondria and triggers mitochondrial biogenesis. And then the HIIT cardio, as I've just mentioned, you don't need to go nuts. Like 2 to 3 rounds is all that's required. Now, the other thing that I want to mention as well is you need really good gut health for this, because if you don't have good gut health, the tight junctions are open, and it's going to be really difficult to get this right. Okay. So the gut speaks to every organ in your body, gut brain axis, hormones, heart. Why don't our medical professionals talk about gut health? Cardiovascular disease, plaque in your arteries, thrombotic events, so thick, sludgy blood and high blood pressure, asthma, allergies, liver. So you can't even detox anymore. And the pancreas, so you can't even release digestive enzymes to digest your foods. Then your bones demineralize. So you can see what's going on there. Then the gut muscle access, which I'll talk about next. So you can't pack on muscle. And as you age, sarcopenia becomes very frail. Skin access, so wrinkles and advanced skin aging, acne, cirrhosis, eczema, atopic dermatitis, and your gonads, they take a hit. You can see how important gut health is. Kidneys, bladder, you got a thyroid axis, you got an eye axis. It's just super important. Now, what I do have for you, I've just opened up a brand new community and you just saw it there. All right. So you can learn at your own pace. And that's the point, right? So everything is in there. And what it is, and that's it there. So there's two options. And you probably only need to be in there for 1 month to learn all of what I just showed you there. So you can learn at your own pace. You don't have to keep coming back to YouTube. You can go through it. And that's everything that you get there. Or you can upgrade to the premium there. So what you'll get is a one-on-one call with me, advanced nutrition. You'll get to speak to me live on these calls and ask questions, know how to definitely activate your longevity genes, accelerated fat loss, and everything that you get over here. So that's just if you want to learn this at your own pace, that's an option for you. All right, so let's just sum up what we've talked about so far. We've got to get these minerals into the cells, and an easy way to do that is to put electrolytes in your body, so slowly over 15 to 20 minutes, then do a little bit of training. That's going to just pull all these micro minerals and electrolytes into the cells, give you that net negative charge, and then hopefully a lot of these things will go. But again, if you got gut issues, you got joint issues, you're probably going to have to do some detective work. So you make sure you get a health check before you do the HIIT cardio and all those things. But eventually you're going to be feeling a lot better because, the mitochondria, the endoplasmic reticulum, they are huge. So if you got any questions, drop in the comments below. And I'm going to talk more about the mitochondria on the next video.